I have to do a response video. I'm not going to play this video twice, and it's, you know, it's going to get obnoxious apparently. So yeah, it's got to be done. So anyway, he goes through this whole video doing this, you know, the first 3 minutes. He's not playing my argument. He's just reading out of a biology book, you know, about the function of our larynx and our tongue and the fact that we do language, which has absolutely, effectively nothing to do with our brain's capacity, as Helen Keller proves. I mean, she doesn't just demonstrate, she proves it, okay? It's a non-argument. The two don't have to be connected. The one part of the brain can function completely without the tool organs or the sense organs. You don't need to hear the language. You can understand the language through any medium, through any way of symbolizing words. It's language that distinguishes us from other apes. And the theory is, and I've argued it as a theory, okay, as an explanation, all right? I haven't said this is the truth, absolutely. I've said it's a perfectly lucid theory in my opinion. When you combine two things, Coco the gorilla and Helen Keller, those examples of human development, you can understand that it's a matter of the number of words. Once Helen Keller knew the symbols were words describing things, then she became starved. She became hungry for more symbols, more words. It opened the whole world for her. She describes the moment where it went from just being nonsense to being everything. Okay? It opened a door. All right? That's her description. The same argument could be made that the limitation between getting us to communicate with primates is a subtle limitation. It has to do with having the necessary number of words to recognize the symbols as a language. All right? And once we get a gorilla to that point, it will become language capable, which will open the door to its abstract understanding, to its perception. And I'm arguing that it might be a very subtle change in its brain that will open that door. And its IQ will go from 50 to 90, or something like that. And it might not be Einstein, but it will communicate, all right? It will explain to you what it's like to be a gorilla in comprehensible language. And that's the distinction. It's not a big difference between us and the apes. It's a subtle difference. And this fuckwit is an asshole. A pseudo-scientist of the worst category. So here's his reading from his dogma. The stuff that, more high school biology.
Not until this development is complete, which occurs by about age 5, are humans physically equipped to make all the speech sounds that distinguish from their simian relatives.
Right, and again, Helen Keller had no use of those faculties and didn't need them to have a conceptual language in her brain. The two are not dependent on each other. Just as we can still function without our hands, we can use other things as tools, and we will do the job. Okay, understanding the job is the key. And you can see it in a lot of mammals. Okay, you can cut parts of them off, and they'll find a way to still climb the tree. I've seen the three-legged cat climb the tree.
Small change, my ass. This denotes not only an incredible misunderstanding of how human beings evolved, but an...
Okay, so again, this is you want to stand by that? All right, you're putting your reputation on the line here. You disprove that theory. Disprove the speculation I just spoke of. Disprove it somehow. And you're not going to be able to, because there's nothing definitive out there to explain exactly exactly how we store our conceptual language. I'm going to argue, okay, that the fact that we had vocabulary is part of the reason why that part of our brain has expanded. So obviously, the fact that we use it would make that change in our brain. But again, if you took it like if you could play experimental games and you could take a porpoise's brain and put it in an ape's body, you might find it so much easier to accomplish this experiment of having a sign language. I mean, the problem with porpoises is it's really hard to communicate with them, with anything. There's not, they can't flash lights at you, or they can't, you know what I mean? It gets complicated to create a mechanism of language exchange that's going to be able to get through the sense barriers. They do have vision, so you can capitalize on that.
Incredible misrepresentation of biology. Now, to demonstrate what we're talking about here is something called the basocranial flexure. This is the basocranial flexure of an ape. Notice how it can't even make the sounds because it's...
Yeah, and again, this is just totally irrelevant. The simple truth is that Helen Keller didn't have the functionality of any of those tools, and she was able to store a conceptual language. She could use the brain assets. And yes, the gorillas likely haven't acquired the brain assets yet because they don't have a way to efficiently use them. I mean, sign language in each other's hands isn't going to be very effective in the real world in terms of communicating. But they're on that road. They obviously do teach each other things. So, give them another 1,000,000 years, and who knows. But the idea that they'll ever gain enough brain to do language is the key argument here. Again, you're not dealing with the truth of the circumstance, which is we were given the capacity to land on the moon, okay, long before we could use the capacity to land on the moon. We had to educate, we had to glean knowledge from the environment, and we did that through having a language with enough words in it. Jeez, what an idiot.
Doesn't have the proper position. Juvenile human, much the same situation.
Yeah, we don't have sonar either. So what? I mean, you're going to go through each sense organ and apply it to other organisms? It's just plain stupid. Intelligence is developing in all these other mammals. They all have some measure of it. And again, the thing that makes us distinct is language. 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 Language.
Adult human. This is the adult human. Fully able to make all the sounds associated with vocabulary.
Yeah, exactly. Vocabulary, you idiot. It's about vocabulary. And vocabulary can be composed of all kinds of different ways of conveying a vocabulary. All right? Porpoises can convey a myriad of sounds, okay? They just haven't turned it into a language yet. And we know what makes a human, what distinguishes, what takes human beings from being stupid monkeys, okay, eating their own shit, essentially, and turning them into something that lands on the moon, is a language.
So, not only are we not talking about a subtle change in these animals' biology, we are talking about
Again, there has been no change in the biology for perhaps 100,000 years. Now, obviously, there's a huge change in our behavior and performance in 100,000 years. So this is an inanely imbecilic argument. You cannot dispute this truth, okay? That it's all about the language and the knowledge gleaned that gives us the appearance of intelligence. The substance, 99.999% of our intelligence is something gleaned by, not gleaned through biological evolution. The same ability to utter 2 words is the same ability to utter 50,000 words.
Really rearranging every physiology part of their body. Every physiological part of their body is what I should say.
Incidental to acquiring language.
Gary, why would you even say this, knowing full well that I was going to hear it eventually?
Oh, please. I made a response video that you're talking in, you dumb retard. How does anything you just said dispute the fact that it was the same human brain 100,000 years ago going, ugh? Huh? Moron? We need this whole articulate tongue and everything to go, ugh? Ugh was somehow profound? I'm afraid the fuck not?
The only reason you got away with this for so long is because I didn't know you made this video, because I don't watch your videos. What do you want me to say to you right now?
You're sorry and feeling quite pitiful because you're off the fucking subject? Yeah, that's right.
You basically just either out of ignorance or deliberately lied to people.
Lied about what? I lied that it was the same brain 100,000 years ago? That's a lie in your opinion?
I'm trying to think it was out of ignorance because of your ego, because of your narcissism. You're unable to understand that people might know more.
Yeah, right. So again, you're going to say to me that there's no capacity for any other organism to communicate language through any other means than having a tongue and larynx. There's no other way to form words and communicate a language. That if it wasn't for those particular tools, there would be no language in the universe. That's your imbecilic theory, asshole. And yeah, I think I've pretty much said all I need to say to annihilate that nonsense. Any organism can acquire a means of communication. And again, the key factor is you have to have enough words in the language for the language to mean anything. It isn't a conceptual language until you have enough words in it.
Did anyone bother to tell you I'm actually in college for this 12 credit hours away from my bachelor's, moving on to my master's afterwards?
Yeah, and that just is more commentary on how fail public education is and private institutions. Just how preposterous fail it is. What a big, fat waste of goddamn money it is. Creating these pseudo-scientists, these NASA scientists who lie. You want to go find some liars? Go to NASA.
This is not an unknown quotient for me. I am not some little jackass who walked in off the street.
No, you're a big, fat jackass. A big, fat human turd.
Damn it. And I expect people to have this knowledge when they speak about these kind of things.
Yeah, right. What knowledge is that? Oh, again, that's right. You claim that all communication must be through a larynx and a tongue. And there can be no communication between organisms without those two features. And their brain cannot develop a conscious, conceptual sense without those two features. Helen Keller was a UFO. That's your fucking argument, right, moron?
You have clearly demonstrated lack of knowledge, and that is unacceptable.
Yeah, well, you're unacceptable. This is unacceptable slander now. You're just a slandering, fat human turd.
And it might just have to do with how long they maturate and the fact that if you just slow down their maturation.
Oh my God, Gary, Jesus Christ. This is
Oh, well, let's hear his counter argument.
not an oven, okay? You don't put the bun in longer if it's not well done.
Oh, man, you're retarded. Now you're really getting retarded. So why do you think human babies are so disabled? What evolutionary function would that have? Why does it take them years to become functional, where other primates, they're functional in about 5 days, a month at the most? They're pretty active, pretty capable. So you explain that to me.
It's got nothing to do with it.
Yeah, it says you. Now, what authority tells you it has nothing to do with it? That our slow maturation might have something critical to do with our capacity to do language. The fact that young kids learn at a much more accelerated rate than the older you get, the harder it is to put new neurology, new stuff into your psychology. That fact is not irrelevant. That fact, I've heard no science say that that's not a significant factor in human development. I haven't heard any yet, asshole. You have some proof? You have some evidence that our slow maturation doesn't have anything to do with the development of our language skills?
Their brain will do what ours does. does, which is spend a couple of years basically unconscious. And
The brain does not spend a number of years unconscious.
I said a couple of years. Well, when do you say we become conscious then, fatwit? What do you say is the average human day of awareness? What year? Year.
It does, however, work very hard to make neural connections in order that it can function later on. But there is
Yeah, that's my point, asshole.
no unconscious stage.
Yeah, says you. Like I said, the science might disagree with you substantially.
Unconscious stage, as you're referring to right now, is more of a philosophical bent, not a biological one.
Well, again, it's one based on the observed science of personal experience and the experience that's duplicated in others' experience. So this argument goes absolutely nowhere. What evidence do you have that, I don't know, go from the day of birth onward and explain where you say consciousness begins?
We're not in philosophy 101. We're in anthropology 400.
And that has, you're going to tell us then when human beings become conscious. Again, if you're going to claim it's some other time, then why don't you tell me what the time is, fuckwit? I mean, you can't dispute a theory without having a counter theory, shithead.
Not very connected to the reality, while a very good operating system is installed in our brain that makes our brain more functional.
So if the operating system is good, why do you take such umbrage with it constantly?
I don't take umbrage with it constantly. I'm using it right the fuck now, you idiot. All right, I've made the point. The point is the only thing that distinguishes us from the other primates is the fact that we have an operating system that has been, through idiot savant mutations, that it has enabled us to do this this eccentric language thing. And that's the only distinction.
You just said that you don't believe that we have higher intelligence, and yet you say the opposite. Our operating system is very good.
Yeah, higher intelligence measured how? Okay, measure our intelligence when we acquired the brain that we have. And compared to an ape, exactly how much smarter were we than a chimpanzee 100,000 years ago? Give them the IQ test. Create your composite human being of that time, void of all cultural knowledge. And you tell me how well it's going to compete. I mean, we could do the experiment. It would be cruel, and we're never going to get the license to do it. But yes, you could raise a human being void of all human culture, all knowledge and information, and you'll get an animal, essentially. We'll compare the intelligence of that human animal against the intelligence of a fucking chimpanzee. And guess what? You're going to have a 2 or 3 or 4% difference. A tiny percent difference has made all the difference. That's my argument. That's what I've demonstrated logically. You are a big fat tub of fail.
Does that not denote some sort of form of higher intelligence, a greater ability than, say, non-human primates?
Yes, a tiny, tiny difference that led to a huge difference. That's my argument, you dumb, motherfucking, smelly tub of shit.
Primates to function? I think it does.
It's not this higher intelligence. The mechanism is more subtle.
More subtle. Coming from somebody who obviously doesn't understand subtlety or biology.
Well, again, I just re-argue the argument. But yeah, let me see you do it. Explain to me how you could demonstrate that a human 100,000 years ago had a significant IQ advantage.
The knowledge possession.
Most of our information is acquired through learning. We have very few instinctual inclinations these days. Almost all of it is passed on. That's one of the important aspects of language. It allows us to do this more easily than other primates who have.
Do what? No, it allows us to do something they're not doing, you dumb fuck. Okay, which is learning through a language.
To learn by observation and mimicking. It's not the same.
And that's exactly my point.
So I find it really irritating when people talk about our intelligence as if we evolved a higher intelligence, and it's really not exactly, I don't think, how it took place.
That's exactly how it took place.
Yeah, so you're going to argue that we landed on the moon through biological evolution. That we biologically acquired knowledge of physics and chemistry and all that stuff. Our brain changed, and we all of a sudden knew what a photon was. No, retard. That's not how it happened.
I take issue with the fact that you commented on this without even knowing what the hell you were talking about.
I'll say it again. I'll repeat the question one more time. What do you think the IQ of a human 100,000 years ago was?
Then Pyro talks about who killed who, and all that stuff happened when the migration happened from Africa, the second migration of the Homo, and
The second migration of the Homo. If you're referring to the first migration as being Homo erectus, which is a different species than us.
No, I was just saying we, human-type animals, upright walkers, as you've distinguished what a human being is by walking upright. Well, there was walking upright beings in fucking Europe, okay, 20,000 years before we, our genetic descendants, showed up, shitwit.
And then the later one being Homo sapien. Yeah. Those were the migrations we're talking about.
yeah, he went into Europe and he wiped out Neanderthal.
Freeze.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I mean, you're going to have some counter theory that we didn't make it hard luck for Neanderthal, one way or another. Anyway, what an idiot. What a fucking idiot. Yeah, so I don't know if I'll bother with part 3. He obviously doesn't understand the distinction between having the potential to do something and using something. These are two different things. We evolved a use intelligence through natural selection that gave us a tiny incremental advantage in terms of our ability to do things like manipulate tools and communicate crudely to each other. There's people right now that have languages. There's natives in Africa that have languages that they can't count to higher than 3. I mean, they're just dysfunctional languages. They won't land on the moon with that language. Duh. So anyway, what a fucking asshole. The comments are really obnoxious. So at least that Ida Mod Dot guy's getting what he deserves from these assholes. Yeah. Because they're downgrading Coco. Coco couldn't empathize. Coco is this. Human beings are so much better. Again, we had the same brain 100,000 years ago. Were those human beings so much better? Were those human beings just they were so obviously distinct from the other apes 100,000 years ago? Obviously distinct. Yeah, I don't think so. They were crude, barbaric, ignorant pieces of shit.